Hey everyone, I thought I would make a quick video on the readings from yesterday and today, Numbers 11 through 15. A lot of stuff, so I thought a video would be easier for me to make. So here in Numbers 11, we read this: we remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt. And I wrote hashtag good old days. We have a tendency to feel nostalgic about the old days, and that might be true in some instances, that the olden days were better than the new days, but sometimes that nostalgic feeling, which is pretty strong in us, can cloud that judgment. And that's what happened with Israelites here, where they were feeling nostalgic for their days in Egypt. And Ecclesiastes 7:10 says, don't say, why were the olden days better than these? So that's something we need to be reminded of every now and then, that we should be thankful for where the Lord has led us to, than just hold on to the past as if it were a perfect time period. Then the manna, a little bit about it, that it's the color of bdellium, which is a reddish brown, it looks like a tree resin or dried dates. That's what it looked like, and they used to make, it says cakes, made cakes with it, and it's basically a disc or a round shaped cake that I don't think is leavened. So it's a flatbread that was round and disc shaped. We make chapatis in India. I'm assuming that it tasted pretty much like that, because it says was like the taste of a pastry prepared with oil, and so probably it tasted something like a chapati flatbread. Then let's see, here's an important thing that I want to comment on too. The 70 elders, the Lord has taken I will take the spirit that is upon you, and I will put the same upon them. And the word is upon, because sometimes in Hebrew the prepositions can be quite tricky to translate, because the preposition ba can be translated as in, on, be, with, not be, but with. So it has a lot of range, but the Hebrew used alehem, which is a pretty clear indication that the Spirit was only upon them and not in them. And this is a very important distinction between the Old and the New Testaments. The Spirit of the Lord was upon people in the Old Testament, and that too on important people like Moses and the prophets and the elders. Whereas in the New Testament, the Spirit is in us, and that is on all of us, not just on special people. And that way the New Testament is better than the Old. And this happened as sort of a practical thing, where people were complaining, and God gave Moses a help in the form of 70 elders. And because the Lord has taken the spirit that was on Moses and put upon some people, we have two new prophets here, Eldad and Medad, and they started prophesying in the camp. And Joshua said, Moses, my Lord, forbid them. But Moses said, are you zealous for my sake? Oh, that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his spirit upon them. And this is fulfilled in the New Testament. We have the Spirit of God in us, not just upon us now. Not all of us are prophets in the New Testament, but that is a good thing to aspire to. And as I said, explained in on one of the Sundays, prophecy can mean future telling, but also forth telling, meaning preaching. It can mean preaching or predicting the future. So Paul said, desire that gift, desire preaching and teaching. So there is still invitation for the people of God like this, that we all could be prophets in our own circle, that we would be witnesses to the Lord, to our friends and neighbors, through our lives and through our words. So we would become prophets in that sense. But we do have the Spirit of the Lord in us now, not just upon us. But this relates to the rebellion of Aaron and Miriam, because they said, "Has he not spoken through us also?" But yeah, the Lord has spoken through them, and he has spoken through Eldad and Medad, and he's spoken through a lot of others. But that is why it says Moses was very humble, more than all the men who were. And I've seen jokes on the internet that showed, they've taken the picture of Obama and photoshopped him, putting a Medal of Honor on himself, and they used that template to say Moses honoring himself in his own book, saying Moses was very humble. But the reason this was included here is what he said here. He was not seeking his own here, but he's saying, oh, that all the Lord's people were prophets. So he's saying, are you zealous for my sake? Don't be, Joshua. I wish that everybody could prophesy. So he didn't have a problem with Aaron and Miriam speaking for the Lord, prophesying for the Lord. So that is the characteristic, and that's how these two passages relate. And I think we're coming to a point in the book of Numbers where there is some question as to who is to continue Moses' leadership. That's why we have characters like Caleb and Joshua being introduced. And so when we're coming almost to the middle of this book, there's already, it seems like there were some questions about Moses' leadership and who is to continue. And the book of Numbers is clarifying that yes, Moses is happy to pass on his leadership, but it has to be done in an order. It should not be done this way, but it should be done in a way where the Lord actually does the transfer of authority from Moses to whoever is the next, and the next turns out to be Joshua. So I think this is a preparation for Joshua's leadership, and that's what he said. The Lord here, if there is a prophet among you, I the Lord will make myself known to him in a vision, in a dream. But then he's explaining how Moses was special, that he spoke face to face, not in dark sayings. That means riddles. And because he sees the form of the Lord, and that is a great blessing that Moses saw the form of the Lord. And one day we will see the Lord face to face, and that is called the beatific vision. The beatific vision. I don't know if I can spell it correctly extemporaneously, but let's see. I think it is beatific vision, where we see the Lord face to face. So that will happen one day, but Moses experienced that, and what a great blessing for the disciples and the people of Israel too, to see Jesus face to face. And here we see Moses becoming leprous, as white as snow. Maybe it's some sort of vitiligo or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, and in this chapter we see them spying out the land, and they said that there were giants in the land. So one of the good words here, be of good courage. All right, so they saw giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sights. And the motif of giants is present throughout the Bible. If you remember, all the way back in the story of the Tower of Babel, there were giants. I think that word is used there. Let me make sure. Genesis 9. Not 9. Well, sorry, that was not in the story of Babel, but right before it. There were giants on the earth in those days. This is right before Noah's story, and these were the sons of God. These were born to the daughters of men, who were with the sons of God. And the Lord saw that the wickedness was great. My theory is that these were the seed of the serpent that was talked about in Genesis 3:15. I will put enmity between you and your seed and her seed; he shall bruise your head. And I think the enemy's seed are these giants. There are other theories, but that's not my main point here. But to show you that this motif recurs in the Bible, so it also recurs in Numbers, where they see these giants here as well when they were going into the land of Canaan. And so, if my theory is right that there were giants before the story of Noah, that evil seed is also present in Canaan, and the Lord is going to deliver them from those giants. And the same giant motif will also repeat famously in the story of David and Goliath. And so this is a thread that goes on in the Bible for a while. I think that's it. But what we need to realize is that the Lord is the one who gives them victory, because they were giants and the Israelites were like grasshoppers. But the Lord is who wins the battle. The battle is the Lord's. Then we have Numbers 14. Oh yeah. So here Moses pleads for the people and his concern. The Lord gets sick and tired of Israelites, and he said, "I'll strike them." But Moses said, "If you kill these people, then everybody will say, because the Lord wasn't able to bring his people to the land which he swore, he killed them in the wilderness." And then he reminds the Lord, that he's long-suffering and abundant in mercy, and then he says, "Pardon the iniquity of these people." So this shows us how to pray to our God, that our concern should be his glory, right? Because even in the Lord's Prayer it says, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." In a similar fashion, Moses is praying with a concern regarding the Lord's name and his glory, and then he's saying, and he's reminding the Lord. Again, I use the word reminding in quotation marks, because we don't need to be reminding the Lord of anything. But he's quoting the scripture earlier on, right? That's what the Lord said to Moses in Exodus, I think it's 34:6. The Lord introduces himself to Moses. Here, the Lord, God, merciful, gracious, long-suffering, abounding in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands. And Moses is quoting the same thing here in Numbers 14, and using that to plead for a pardon for the iniquity of these people. And he says, "I don't want to kill them completely, but because he's somebody who also does not let the guilty go, he's only going to not let the first generation go into the land, or kill the first generation, so to speak, in the wilderness, but let the second generation and those who are faithful to him to go into the land of Israel, or Canaan." So that is also a reminder for us to watch our walk with the Lord, that we don't take him for granted. Yes, he's long-suffering and abundant in mercy, but we should not take him for granted. So that's something that we need to be reminded of. And then he talks, there's a lot about the drink offerings here in chapter 15, which I don't think I need to comment much on. Anyway, so that's basically from explanation for all these chapters. I hope that was helpful. See you.